The flight we're about to look at is leg 2 of this trip. We started off in London on the A350 of China Southern, and we've had an overnight layover here in Beijing. So before we get into the video, what's Beijing like as a layover destination? What did we get up to? Would I recommend it? And would we do it again? Well, straight up, I'll hold my hands up and say I wish we'd have just taken the shorter same-day connection from Beijing over to Seoul, avoiding the overnight. First up though, how did we get into China? China has a transit visa on arrival policy for many countries across the world, including a lot of the countries within Europe and the UK as well. This means that once you're landed, you can apply for a visa for the duration of your stay. But there's a couple of stipulations around that. The first, you can't be returning straight back to the country that you came from. You must be visiting a third country as part of your connection. In the case with us right now, the United Kingdom is where we came from, which would be country 1. China is country 2 because that's where we are, and country 3 will be South Korea. So you can see there's a third country there, and that's where we're going to be ending our journey, if you like, to get there. So that makes us eligible for that visa. We stayed on the airport site at the Mumien, I think it's called that, airport hotel. I'd recommend it actually if you do have a layover. It's in sort of a shopping centre which is connected to the airport, so it means you're always inside as you get there. It being connected to an airport is also great because it lets you get the trains, the metro, into the city centre, and you don't have to walk too far to get there. It was also a pretty good value. I think we paid £73 for the night that we stayed. One of the big things you need to get sorted out, preferably before you leave the UK, is making sure your Alipay is set up. Alipay is a form of payment method, I guess. It's pretty common in China and that part of the world not to accept Visa, MasterCard or American Express. So what you can do with Alipay is load any of those 3 brands onto there to start with, and then you simply get a barcode, and that's how you pay for most of your goods when you're in China. So train tickets, food, taxis, the sort of 7-Eleven style shops, they all accept Alipay. You just scan your barcode and then that'll just debit your account as usual. Speaking of trains and train tickets and how you get them, that brings us on to the next thing that you really must make sure you've got whilst you're in Beijing, and that is your passport with you at all times. We actually needed our passports to buy our train tickets. They wouldn't let us have any without them. The whole train ticket experience and train journey into the city centre was a little bit odd. Passports to buy our tickets, use Alipay to pay, and then you have to go through, I guess, sort of a form of airport security. You go through a scanner and an X-ray machine, etc. But make sure you've got your passport on you, because once we were in Beijing itself, I think we were asked 5 times by different police around the city centre who we are, what we were doing there, and proof of identity was pretty important in that situation. I think at one point actually the police guy even took a photo of our passports. Don't know what that was about, but yeah, passports and ID are crucial in this part of the world. The other thing that I will say is make sure you plan what you want to do in your layover. It's not a city you can just rock up to and expect to get into stuff. We made that mistake, so make sure you don't. We wanted to visit Tiananmen Square, and we passed through, I think, 3 checkpoints on security to get towards the square. It was only when we got to the last one that they told us you have to have a ticket that you can only buy the day before. Free ticket, but you kind of, I assume, have to be vetted before you go anywhere near it. We didn't know that. Again, hold our hands up here. That's one of our things we didn't investigate beforehand. But if you want to go to places like Tiananmen Square, make sure you look at that, get your ticket, be prepared for the visit itself. That doesn't mean, though, we didn't get to do a lot of other stuff. We managed to walk around the outskirts of the palace. Again, that's where our passports got checked a few times by the police. And we also went up Jingshan Gardens, I think it was called. That gave us quite a good view over the palace from a high up vantage point. So yeah, there are things you can do for free that you don't need a ticket, but it's best to plan your time there as opposed to rock up and kind of go with the flow like you would in a European city, for example. One more thing before we go back to the airport. Food, we struggled with a little bit. It wasn't that we struggled with the eating of the food. Chinese food is great, but we just struggled to find somewhere that we wanted to eat. We ended up going to a duck restaurant. I know it's a little bit touristy, but it was really nice, but probably the strangest meal that we've ever had. We walked in, I think we were the only people, maybe one other table was seated. There's obviously ducks hanging on a rail that are ready to go. And the whole restaurant seemed to come out and greet us, but then also proceed to watch us eat, even try and help us eat, dare I say. It was totally strange. I think they were trying to show us how to use chopsticks or assemble the pancakes, which we know how to do. They were being hospitable, so don't get me wrong, it's really grateful. but it's a little bit odd when there's a guy trying to assemble the pancake in front of you, and then the rest of the staff in the restaurant will sort of come round to see you, and they're kind of taking pictures of you eating. Yeah, really strange experience. And all those things put together are kind of why we didn't enjoy our layover, and we wish we'd have just gone straight to Seoul. That's where we wanted to be at the end of the day. So lesson learned for next time, and hopefully a lesson learned as well for you guys watching. With that though, let's get to the airport and get on with the video. The airport is an absolutely stunning building, opening in 2019, and landside here you can see and appreciate the vast space that it takes up. There are subtle and not so subtle reminders everywhere of who's in charge. This bridge between customs and exit immigration allows you views of the domestic area below, whereas ahead where we're going is where you'll find the international section. The airport has 4 runways with facilities for 72 million passengers every year. But you wouldn't know looking at how few flights there are on the international board today. Perhaps most of that capacity is designed to be domestic. Let me know in the comments. We're going to head down the E Pier towards our gate, and the indoor greenery does give slight Singapore Changi vibes here. Oh yeah, and there's pandas everywhere too. Towards the end of the pier is a China garden, which to be honest is probably more China than what we saw yesterday afternoon. As with our flight into Beijing, boarding started very early. I didn't get a great view of our aircraft, but who can tell me about the one that's parked next door? At this point we haven't seen our checked-in luggage since Friday night, and it's now Sunday, but the good news is that all appears well and it seems to be getting on board with us. Okay, so on board our A321neo, let's have a look at the seat. No TV screens unfortunately, you've got all the literature stuff at the top. Our tray table down here. It feels smaller than what we used to, but it does still adjust in. This huge pocket, look, it's buried 2 water bottles in there. Legroom wise, this feels fine for a 90-minute flight. The seat also comes out quite far, so I feel like I've got quite good support under my legs. The armrest fully retracts too. We're just at the back of the wing, as you can see here. A quick check of the safety cards. I love that in all the safety briefings they've still got PlayStation portables on there. That's so retro. I was kind of hoping for a Chinese built Airbus today, but this one it looks like was assembled in Hamburg over 2 years ago. So just before pushback, arrival cards handed out. I think we need to fill this in, but my pen is in my bag in the overhead locker. And now for the safety demo. I mentioned in my previous flight the security guard on board, and yes, he seemed to be sitting in a passenger seat, so he could be your seatmate. Ready for the weirdness? Yes, breakfast was served whilst we're still on the ground and taxiing out. So here you have my chicken hot dog bag. Also a yogurt inside. Just finished handing out as we're pushing back. Anyway, whilst I eat my sausage, let's head out to the runway. Have you ever had an airline meal on the ground before? I would say there's quite a lot of bread to sausage, the ratio is a bit off. As seems standard, the crew were not allowed to leave their seats until 30 minutes after takeoff. We had a few bumps on the climb out, but managed to get some good views of China as we headed out towards the coast. Eventually, we hit the Yellow Sea, and you can't help but be amazed at the sheer number of cargo ships queuing up, waiting to unload and pick up. It's time to have our part 2 of our meal now, the yogurt. Or is it? It's safe to say that I embarrassed myself here. You're supposed to use this straw, so perhaps I didn't need to take the lid off. It's certainly not a spoon. Either way, the lid's off now, and I'm going to have to drink it. All washed down with a tiny water. Today's flight was only 1 hour and 19 minutes, but aside from sleeping or grazing, there's also kids' TV to watch, although no headphones were provided. If that's not your thing, in-flight entertainment is available via your own device once you connect to the Wi-Fi network. Maybe the flight was a tad more turbulent than what I remember. Perhaps the turbulence, coupled with the crew being seated for the first 30 and last 30 minutes of the flight, is the reason why the food was given out on the ground. 20 minutes to distribute, eat and hand back might have been a little bit of a push. Relatively quickly we started the descent then into Seoul Gimpo, approaching and landing on 14 right. Unfortunately, it's quite a gloomy day here in Seoul, a little dark and a little wet. This ticket was booked as a one-way flight from Heathrow connecting through Beijing and onto Seoul Gimpo. Apportioning for the miles flown, this leg set us back £62.80 each, out of a total ticket cost of £309, which I still think represented pretty good value. In summary then, China Southern are a great option for you if you're flying out of Europe and want to get to this side of the world. They've got some really competitive fares, their aircraft are all pretty much new. Yes, they've got some quirks in terms of how they operate the service. There's a couple of nuances like the security guard, which is a little bit strange. But overall, they're pretty decent. I wouldn't do the layover again, I'd try and take a same-day connection. But you know what, maybe we got unlucky with some of our poor planning and poor weather in Beijing, so don't let that put you off. Alighting and into the terminal, and immigration were absolutely lovely. We had a short wait to get through, but the officer that we spoke to was friendly, welcoming, and thrilled that we were there. A stark contrast to the agents that we experienced in China. Down into the baggage hall, and our bags were already there. I'm going to go and enjoy Seoul now, so thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.